I only have one message to give you. I don't care what you think of me. I don't care what you call me. I do care what you do with this information because it is important to our survival as a species.
I really would love to thank you for your time you gave to us, and I would love to know what triggered your activities. What happened that you went to say, I need to do this?
I knew about it from 1959. In 1960, the end of 1959, 1960, I went to my first military class on microwaves. And the very, very first lecture that I went to, the teacher, then the military teacher, said, if you want children and you want a healthy life and you want to live to your retirement, do not expose yourself to low-level microwaves. And whenever we had to adjust the electronics or do something to the microwave equipment, it had to be turned off, the switch was padlocked, you gave the key to an officer, a senior officer, and then you could work on the equipment. It was that dangerous. So in the 1970s, 1960s, 1970s, when microwaves were being used as weapons by the Americans and the Russians, basically to kill each other. That didn't surprise me. That did not surprise me because I thought, well, it's an indetectable weapon. And when you die, you can blame God and you can blame the environment, but you can't blame the person sending it. And you can send them from one country to another or across the road, but you don't even know you're being exposed. And I thought, well, that's not a nice weapon, because they were carrying out experiments on women, which I quoted, where they could make breast cancer, miscarriages. Men would have leukemia, children would have leukemia. They were all experiments from one country to another. On prisoners, people, tramps that they find on the streets and whatever. So, and I thought, I don't like where this is going. You know, we have a weapon now which is, it's not germ warfare, it's not atomic warfare, it's killing people with radiation.
I'm your host, William Cooper, and you're listening to the Hour of the Time. Folks, all the problems are within us, and all the answers are therein also. Silent weapon technology has evolved from Operations Research, or OR, a strategy and tactical methodology developed under the military management in England during World War II. And this will be the first that most of you have ever heard of it. The original purpose of operations research was to study the strategic and tactical problems of air and land defense with the objective of effective use of limited military resources against foreign enemies. In other words, folks, logistics. For after they developed this operations research and found out that it could be extremely useful, it was soon recognized by those in positions of power that the same methods might be useful for totally controlling a society. But better tools at that time were necessary. Social engineering, folks, the analysis and automation of a society, requires the correlation of great amounts of constantly changing economic information or data. So a high-speed, computerized data processing system was necessary, which could race ahead of the society and predict when society would arrive for capitulation. Relay computers were too slow, but the electronic computer invented in 1946 by J. Presper Eckert and John W. Mauchly filled the bill. The next breakthrough was the development of the simplex method of linear programming in 1947 by the mathematician George B. Dantzig. Then, in 1948, the transistor, invented by J. Bardeen, W. H. Brattain, and W. Shockley, promised great expansion of the computer field by reducing space and power requirements. With these three inventions under their direction, those in positions of power strongly suspected that it was possible for them to control the whole world with the push of a button. You see, folks, all science is merely a means to an end. The means is knowledge. The end is control. And most of you don't understand it and never have understood it, and many of you never will understand that. And those in power believe that the end always justifies the means. And beyond this remains only one issue, folks. Who will be the beneficiary? In 1954, this was the issue of primary concern. Although the so-called moral issues were raised, in view of the law of natural selection, it was agreed that a nation or world of people who will not use their intelligence are no better than animals who do not have intelligence. Such people are beasts of burden and stakes on the table by choice and consent, always have been and always will be. Consequently, in the interest of future world order, peace, and tranquility, it was decided to privately wage a quiet war against the American public with an ultimate objective of permanently shifting the natural and social energy, or wealth, of the undisciplined and irresponsible many into the hands of the self-disciplined, responsible, and worthy few. In order to implement this objective, it was necessary to create, secure, and apply new weapons, which, as it turned out, were a class of weapons so subtle and sophisticated in their principle of operation and public appearance as to earn for themselves the name silent weapons. And it was quickly realized that if it was done properly, the public themselves would load the weapons and fire them for the end result of their own destruction.
A lot of people worry that their cell phone will give them cancer, which isn't all that surprising. I mean, you're holding a device that emits radiation right next to your brain. Terrible idea, right? Well, no. Some kinds of radiation can damage DNA, which can then lead to cancer, but your cell phone doesn't give off that kind of radiation. And even if there was a way that cell phone radiation could hurt you, studies have shown that it doesn't. Cell phones communicate with cell towers using a form of radiation known as radio frequency, or RF radiation. The word radiation is just in there because it's a type of energy on the electromagnetic spectrum. The spectrum goes from low energy at one end to high energy at the other. Radio and microwaves are near the low end. Gamma rays and X-rays are near the high end. It can help to think of electromagnetic radiation as a wave with a certain frequency based on its energy. The higher the energy, the higher the frequency. When an electromagnetic wave hits an atom, it transfers some energy to that atom. When the wave has a high enough frequency, meaning it has a lot of energy, it can transfer enough energy to the atom to knock out an electron. Electromagnetic energy that can knock out electrons is called ionizing radiation, and it can break chemical bonds in your cells and damage your DNA. In other words, it's the cancer-causing kind. When electromagnetic energy doesn't have a high enough frequency to break chemical bonds, it's called non-ionizing radiation. If non-ionizing radiation hits an atom, it isn't going to be able to knock out an electron, so it can't damage cells and it can't cause cancer. It doesn't matter how strong the beam of radiation is, its ability to knock out electrons only depends on its frequency.
We believe 5G is an exponential improvement to what we have today. This year is the year that we're going to offer a commercial product to our customers.
In millimeter wave, we have a massive amount of bandwidth. We're seeing testing speeds of over 1 gigabit per second, as well as extremely low latency.
It's really high frequency, so everybody thinks it doesn't go very far, but it's a really big pipe, and so that's what allows you to gain the super fast speed. It's really high frequency.
It doesn't matter how strong the beam of radiation is, its ability to knock out electrons only depends on its frequency.
Inside your mobile phone, there are these 4 radio transmitters, each of which, in the old days, when I was building this sort of stuff at university, was the size of a small microwave. And now they're the size of a head of a match. So there's a radio transmitter, and this is what worries people, that does voice to the nearest telephone tower. And there's a radio transmitter that does data, ones and noughts to the nearest telephone tower. And then there's the Wi-Fi transmitter receiver, which talks to your normal base station in your house, range 5, 10, 20 metres depending. And then finally, there's another radio transmitter for Bluetooth, which is shorter range, to the car or to your keyboard or something like that. 4 transmitters. And people are saying, well, they're transmitting radiation. Radiation comes from nuclear weapons, therefore Wi-Fi is bad.
So radiation, but is it microwave? How does it work? Because we also talk about like radios, TVs also transmit that radiation too.
Amazingly, the boundary between dangerous and non-dangerous radiation is just on the edge of the rainbow. So, you know how you've got red light and you work your way down to blue and then violet? If you go blue and then red and then heat and then you go to longer and longer wavelengths, like microwaves are maybe the distance across of your fist, about 10 centimetres, then radio waves are meters and then longer and longer and longer waves. Everything from blue up is what they call non-ionising. If the radiation is from blue through the microwaves, which is mobile phones, and the Wi-Fi, which are around the microwave, and the Bluetooth, they're all around the same frequency. If the radiation is from blue up, it is not ionising, it will not knock off electrons off an atom, it will not break up molecular bonds. But
in other words, it won't affect your health.
It won't, it'll cause heating, but that's it. There's possible other effects.
You're talking about cell damage, basically.
Yeah, cell damage. But going the other way, definitely electromagnetic radiation is dangerous. So you go from violet, you're fine, ultraviolet, skin cancers. And you work your way down through X-rays and gamma rays, everything from violet down, so ultraviolet, and you keep on going, everything there is dangerous and will cause cancer.
But when you don't tell people, that is what I objected to. So I started my objections there, purely because of the thousands of people that were going to die just as they reach pension. You know, they've worked for 40 years, 50 years, they're just going to get their old age pension, and then they have a long-standing brain tumour that can take 30 years to develop, and then they came out with cell phones in 72, 73, 74, different people have different ages, with cell phones, and we're now giving them to people and children. And of course, children are 60% more susceptible than adults.
Did you know that every day we are surrounded by invisible electromagnetic radiation? From microwaves, dishwashers, computers, televisions, power lines, wiring in the building, to cell phones. They all produce electromagnetic radiation. You know what? Raise your hand if you own a cell phone. Now guess what? These days, every kid wants to have a cell phone, but cell phones give radiation, and if exposed to too much radiation, you may get a tumor or cancer. Do you know that nowadays kids start using cell phones as early as the age of 5? Now guess what happens to their brains when they use cell phones at such an early age? They get 5 times as much radiation than adults do. The reason it's easier for radiation to reach a kid's brain is because a kid's skull is thinner than an adult's skull, which lets a lot more radiation to the brain of a child.
More than 2/3 of Americans have cell phones, but there's long been a question: does heavy cell phone use hurt human health? Lindsay Davis reports on a major new study which for the first time shows cell phones do seem to have some mysterious effect on the brain.
47 participants had cell phones placed on their left and right ears. One cell phone was activated but muted, the other was turned off. After 50 minutes, the researchers took PET scans of the subjects. Look at what they found. The image on the left shows what happened when the cell phone was turned on. The most active areas are in red. Notice the upper right part of the brain. That's the area closest to the antenna. Compare that with this image on the right of the same subject when they had their cell phones turned off.
I confess that after the findings, I changed my behavior. So now I use it on a speakerphone. I just put a wire on my earphones.
For years, studies have tried to link cell phones and cancer, but they've been inconclusive. Experts say this new study offers perhaps the first real step in the search for an answer.
CTIA, the Wireless Trade Association, told us the leading global health organizations have overwhelmingly indicated that wireless devices are not a public health risk.
Hey, Sheriff, me. Yeah, I ran out of juice. Listen, there's a flight.
It's Manchester. It leaves in about an hour.
Clay, you've been gone for over a year. I love you, but it's not that simple.
I'd like to see my son. So,
Your time's up.
I need more money. Hold on.
Please deposit.
Hello again, Earth. I'm Alec Baldwin here at Hulu with some exciting news. Now that we're beaming TV shows to your lab-based computing boxes for free, 24/7, they're finally rotting your brains, just like Mom promised they would. So keep watching. You know, they say TV will rot your brain. That's absurd. TV only softens the brain, like a ripe banana, to take it all the way. We've created Hulu. Hulu beams TV directly to your portable computing devices, giving you more of the cerebral gelatinizing shows you want, anytime, anywhere, for free. Mushy mush. And the best part is there's nothing you can do to stop it. I mean, what are you going to do, turn off your TV and your computer?
Hello, Earth. Earth. I'm Eliza Dushku, star of the new show Dollhouse. It's a potent blend of twisty plot lines and insane action that'll keep your eyes glued and your brain rotting, as your high school teacher used to say. And to speed things up, we created Hulu. Hulu beams so many free shows right to your computer. It'll simmer your head meat down to a bubbling, brainy fondue. Useless to you, delicious to us.
Hulu, an evil plot to destroy the world. Enjoy.
Greetings, Earth friends. I'm Seth MacFarlane. You know, the next time someone says TV rots your brain, laugh. Laugh hard.
That laughter will force our televised intoxicants deep into your cerebellum, slowly rotting it into a quivering blob of tapioca.
Yeah, and to finish it off, we got Hulu. Hulu blasts enough free TV to your lappity-toppity boxes
to turn your chunky gray matter into creamy goo matter. Giggity. Giggity goo.
Who wants chowder?
Hey, Earth. Come here. It's time for a little come to dentist meeting. Your parents were right, your teachers were right, even that creepy scoutmaster with the tight brown shorts was right. TV is slowly rotting your brain and turning it into a slimy, gooey, mushy blob of pudding, and there's nothing you can do about it. See? I just told you what was happening, and you're still watching TV. Amazing. But this whole slowly part is getting to be a real problem. Well, guess what? Hulu. We built Hulu to pump thousands of hours of free TV right into the one screen you drag around everywhere. So here's the deal. Help us churn their finely cultured skull beef down to the aforementioned pudding, and we'll slurp out yours last. Eh? Yeah.
Hello, Earth. So good to see you. Seeing me. We know you find TV irresistible. And Hulu. Yeah. Now follow me. Below the curtain. To the Hulubratory, where we make the irresistible irresistibler. And our latest silver bullet, Hulu Plus. In your new favorite place. Everywhere. You see, this is your brain on TV. This is your brain on Hulu. So close. And this is your brain on Hulu Plus. And this is your brain with a little sprig of mint. Hulu Plus.
That's hot.
An eviler plot to destroy the world. Enjoy. Hello, Earth. Those of us in TV are really glad you're watching, because while you can't get enough TV, we can't get enough of you watching TV. I've been following this guy since Arrested Development. Big fan. What a lineup. Seems all the things that your mom said about watching too much TV were premature. That is, until Hulu to the power of plus. I can't wait to see how they all end.
Well, howdy doody, kids, and howdy, Buffalo Bob. Well, howdy there, Mr. Duty, and boys and girls at home and all my kids in the gallery, let's go. It's howdy doody time. It's howdy doody time. Bob Smith and howdy do. Say howdy do to you. Let's give a rousing cheer, 'cause howdy doody's here. It's time to start the show. All kids, let's go, good kids.
Have you ever tried to get your whole big toe in your mouth? Check this out. Sometimes I wonder if you can get juice from a potato. Ew. Is it possible for a teenage girl to drink water upside down? I'm thirsty! It's not possible! This has been me in a video. Come on! Give up the juice!
Now, I also mentioned too that a fellow that has been in touch with me for an awful long time, his brother was in the CIA, or is in the CIA. He will never talk about the CIA to him. He'll never give anything away whatsoever, except one bit of advice. He said, never watch the television. Never watch the television. It's the greatest scientific indoctrination tool ever devised. Haven't you figured that out? It's changed the whole culture of nations, not just one nation. Why do you think it was mandatory that everybody in Britain give access to televisions by the government? Why do you think China is under the same program to get everyone to the TV right now? Because they love to have you entertained. Do you really think that? And India is on the same route as well right now too. Most of your ideas and your opinions and how you emulate, because you emulate things, you mimic what you see. As Charles Galton, Darwin and others have said in the past. It becomes you, you become it. And that's what's happened. It's been very, very, very successful. Never watch the television.
I am a pediatrician, a researcher, and a parent. And I became those things in that order. And the reason the sequencing is important is because even though I was a doctor who took care of children for a while, and I was a researcher who studied ways to keep them healthy, it wasn't until I became a parent that I got interested in, some might even say obsessed with, early learning. Now we know from decades of research that too little stimulation early on is bad for brain development. I show you here 2 PET scans. Now, PET scans are measures of brain function. The brighter colors show more brain activity. And on the left is a PET scan of a normal kindergartner. And on the right is a PET scan of a child who was raised in a horribly neglected environment. This is actually a PET scan from a child who was raised in a Romanian orphanage and was profoundly neglected early in life. And you'll notice that there are areas of his brain that show no activity at all. It didn't develop as a result of too little stimulation. Now, this is a horrific example of too little stimulation and the untoward consequences of it. But the question we've had in our lab for some time is, what about too much? So we've had for a while what we call the overstimulation hypothesis, which is that prolonged exposure to this rapid image change during this critical window of brain development would precondition the mind to expect high levels of input, and that would lead to inattention in later life. So you watch enough Baby Einstein Day on the Farm as a baby, and when you go to a farm as a school-aged child, it's boring. It's too slow. How come there's no sheep suddenly popping into my face? How come there's no marionette going back and forth? Why do I have to walk from here to there? That's the general idea, that you're conditioning the mind to that reality, which doesn't actually exist.
There is a certain vulnerable, small but significant group of kids who we really should be careful with the material that they see in films, but in particular, the kind of gaming material they use. And that is the kids who have psychiatric disorders. So if you're more impulsive, if you are more anxious, if you tend to be more depressed, or if you tend to be more detached and distant from and have social limitations in your way that you engage with your peer group, those are kids who are going to be more likely to play video games more often, and therefore the more aggressive the video game, the more sensitive they are to that material.
In our morning rounds, video games and your kids, 97% of teenagers and preteens say they play them. About a third admit at least one of their favorite Favorites is rated mature or adults only, often because of the violent content. Well, a new study finds a link between violent games and aggressive behavior in children. Dr. Harold Koplowitz is a child psychiatrist and president of the Child Mind Institute and joins us at the table. Hello, Harold Koplowitz.
Good morning.
Seems like we have been hearing about this information for years, that there's a correlation. What makes this study different and so important to you?
I think it's a very good study in the respect that it's a large sample. There are over 3,000 kids who were interviewed for the study over 2 years, and they were interviewed 3 times about how often they play games, what kind of games they're playing, and what kind of effect it has on them. It has one limitation that we should note is that they only are relying on self-report. That means the kids are giving us the information. We're not getting information from teachers or from parents. But the kids are telling us that the longer they play and the more they play aggressive games, they start thinking in an aggressive way and they have more aggressive attitudes. That's not necessarily a link to violence, but that does tell us that the exposure, particularly for young kids, does have a negative effect in the way they think.
Gunshot echoed from this trailer park Thursday night when an 8-year-old child shot his grandmother in the back of the head. Neighbors were shocked, and the owners say it's usually a quiet place.
I've been here since 1980. And we haven't experienced a lot of this. People have moved out of town, out of other trailer parks to come out here, and they say it's peaceful and quiet.
East Feliciana Parish Sheriff's investigators say the little boy pulled the trigger on his 90-year-old grandmother after playing Grand Theft Auto 4, a realistic video game encouraging violence and giving points for killing people.
They need to, actually teach them about gun safety. The younger kids, they should know. Where did he see the gun? Like, where did she have the gun? Where was it placed? Like, was it in his eyesight? Or that's what kind of the thoughts that goes through my head.
It's a shock to me as much as it is anyone else, because everything's been so peaceful. Miss Smothers was a fine tenant, never give us no trouble, called all the time.
But she won't be calling anymore.
Hope that everything goes all right with the family. And, I will be praying for that family.
Family members say the boy was just visiting his grandmother from Baton Rouge, and they had a normal, loving relationship.
And any delays, but he continues to take these weird off.
And here he's jumping out of the car. Take
Oh my gosh.
Look, he's jumping into another car, and not sure what's happening here, but it appears he may be pulling somebody out of this gold minivan.
Oh my gosh, he's hijacking someone else's car.
You can only imagine what that feeling must be like. So now he's jumping, and he clearly did not take the child with him.
It was just him. It was just him. There's no child with him in this new minivan that he's just taken over. He commandeered it. Looked like from a woman who...
Right.
Two people got out.
Passenger, driver.
Okay.
Yeah, it looked right at some point. The bad guys don't win. That's not how it works in this world, thankfully. Oh, man, that was a close call.
Yeah.
That guy looks like he just hit the
Okay, it looks like maybe the car's been damaged there a little bit.
Maybe.
You think he blew a tire up there, that upper right? It's hard to tell. Maybe he damaged the front nose enough
that it's rubbing and it'll potentially blow. Is because they are so close to Centennial that they can push it just a bit longer to keep police informed where he is and to also be sure that they're safe so they can get back down. And here he goes. Looks like he's going to possibly jump out of the
it looks like he's going to jump. There's some smoke coming off that car. He ran into someone else. He's got the yellow and black jacket, just like in the surveillance video. Wait, what is he doing? He's getting back to the car, grabbing something.
Where is he? Which exit?
He's panicking. Oh, he wants to get this other car. That's what he's trying to do.
He's on 470 in Peoria.
What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in 4 basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism. The result you can see. Most of the people who graduated in the 60s, dropouts or half-baked intellectuals, are now occupying the positions of power in the government, civil service, business, mass media, educational system. You are stuck with them. You cannot get rid of them. They are contaminated. They are programmed to think and react to certain stimuli in a certain pattern. You cannot change their mind, even if you expose them to authentic information, even if you prove that white is white and black is black. You still cannot change the basic perception and the logic of behavior. In other words, these people, the process of demoralization is complete and irreversible. To get rid society of these people, you need another 20 or 15 years to educate a new generation of patriotically minded and common sense people who would be acting in favor and in the interests of the United States society.
This might be the scariest movie of the summer, at least for parents.
You excited?
Yes. The new dramedy, 8th Grade, is about Kayla, a painfully shy 13-year-old, as she stumbles through her last week of middle school. But there's more to the movie than the usual teen angst and acne.
Most quiet, Kayla Day.
Like a lot of kids, Kayla spends a good chunk of her day online, texting with her classmates, or posting self-help videos on her YouTube channel.
And make sure to subscribe to my channel. Social media has made me think differently as a person. It's made me more anxious, I think. Be yourself and don't care about like what other people think about you. And
Burnham shows the internet as a double-edged sword. The same technology that allows a shy girl to reach out to the world can also torment her with images of people having fun without her.
It follows you everywhere now, and it follows you into your bedroom, and then you get into your bed at the end of the night, and you have a choice between all of the information in the history of the world or the back of your eyelids, which is not a great choice between oblivion or infinity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is there a middle ground where these kids can exist?
You know, and I also want to say, I think it's training our brains to be fine with being overstimulated. Like, it is severely lowering our attention spans.
Do you see that in yourself?
Yeah, of course. Especially now, it's like, it feels so strenuous to just sit down for 20 minutes and just do nothing and think. And the internet gives you an escape from your thoughts, which might not always be good.
A warning for parents tonight. The Tide Pod Challenge is the latest fad among teens on social media. Teens are challenging others to put a pod in their mouth, bite down on it, and then post on social media. 8 on your sides, Janet Jones joins us now. And I mean, this is nothing to laugh at. It's no joke. These kids think it's funny, but this can cause some serious health problems.
Good evening to you, Jen. It certainly can, and this can even be life-threatening. There's been dozens of cases so far this year, and we're just 15 days into the new year, and in many of these cases, teens are rushed to the ER or even hospitalized.
Well, now to the dangerous new viral trend making the rounds on TikTok. It's called the Skull Breaker Challenge, and 2 New Jersey students are now facing charges for doing it after seriously injuring another child. Ariel Rushef is here, and Ariel, this has some big consequences.
It sure does, Amy. It's yet another dangerous viral prank sweeping social media. The Skull Breaker Challenge already landing several kids in the hospital with serious injuries. Now a family from New Jersey is sharing their 13-year-old son's story to warn others.
Videos like this one may only be a few seconds, but the frightening aftermath can last much longer. The Skull Breaker Challenge is as dangerous as it sounds. 2 people fool an unsuspecting third into jumping into the air, kicking their feet right out from under them, all captured on video and shared on TikTok. After falling victim to the challenge, Stacy and Mark Shanker's son was rushed to the hospital.
My son ended up having a seizure with a traumatic brain injury and a concussion with loss of consciousness.
Now the 2 students who challenged the boy are facing assault charges.
If you do something and you make a mistake, it could ruin your life forever. It could ruin somebody else's life forever.
Authorities and doctors warning the challenge is putting those targeted at significant risk.
If you hit head first, you can have a skull fracture, a hematoma on the outside of the skull, or even bleeding within the brain.
And the Shanker's son, not the only one suffering serious injuries resulting from the viral dare.
I couldn't feel my hands, I couldn't feel my legs, my feet, nothing.
13-year-old Kathleen DeJesus was rushed to the hospital from her middle school in Massachusetts after being targeted by her peers.
I was thinking like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my life for this game. I should have never done it.
So the context was I was at Stanford and the dean asked me to speak to the MBA students. And in it, what I was talking about was, the question was, what do you think the long-term effects of social media in general are? And unfortunately, what happened was, I think it's easy to characterize what I said just as a Facebook-specific thing because I worked there and I was a key part of growing it. The reality of what I was...
Explain what you said at the time.
So
about
what I said
Facebook.
was, I think the tools that have been created today are starting to erode the social fabric of how society works. And what I meant by that is the following thing. Today, we live in a world now where it is easy to confuse truth and popularity. And you can use money to amplify whatever you believe and get people to believe that what is popular is now truthful and what is not popular may not be truthful.